RDS alternatives. I just got an email from a reader, and this person has a customer with several Windows 7 computers in a small peer-to-peer network. And what the customer does is they connect to these computers from remote locations using RDS, remote desktop services, so that they can remotely control their accounting software. And basically, the customer wanted some alternatives to RDS. A lot of times customers are looking for more or different ways to connect, types of encryption, and authentication methods. So I gave some alternatives to the reader so that he could pass that on to the customer. Now, first of all, RDS is a good program. Remote desktop services works pretty well. If you have a peer-to-peer network, it works even better if you're using Server 2008 or 2012 or what have you. And by the way, this is a good article here, Microsoft Remote Desktop Services Explained on the TechNet, and I'll link to this underneath the video. But anyways, I gave a couple alternatives. First is VNC. There's lots of types of VNC. I personally like real VNC the best, I guess, but I'll use any VNC if I can get my hands on it. I love VNC, but it works pretty well. You can use it on the LAN, you can use it on the internet. For example, I have an Ubuntu laptop running here on the LAN, and you can see you get the VNC icon here, and VNC connection is running. And it's very responsive. If I want to bring up the terminal, I'll bring that up now. And it's really just as fast as that computer is running. It's so quick over the LAN. You know, if I do an ifconfig, I can see the information. The typing, the clicking, the display, it's all really quick over a a typical Cat5e or Cat6 network on the LAN. So it works great on the LAN. It also works very well on the internet. And there's other types of VNC packages out there. And by the way, this is, there's a very powerful free version of real VNC, but there's also a pay version. But there's other types of packages as well, like Ultra VNC, which is really easy to use. Not to say that real VNC is not, but Ultra VNC, easy to use. Tight VNC with a small footprint, uses very little in the way of resources, and they call that lightweight. But I usually default back to real VNC. It's got a lot of platform support. I use it to connect to Linux, Mac, other Windows computers, and Android. And then they also have viewers for Android and iOS going in the opposite direction. So there's a lot of possibilities here, a lot of platform support. Now, another tool I use and recommend is TeamViewer. I love the free version. The pay version gets a little bit pricey, but if you're an organization, you can, and you have the computers and you need the requirements, it's actually worth it. But I love the free version. It works great. Now, what sets TeamViewer and VNC apart from RDS? Well, RDS, for the most part, if you're without additional hardware or software modules, RDS is limited to, I think, a 128-bit key that is based on RC4, which has effectively been proven as crackable. On the other hand, VNC and TeamViewer, they use different types of encryption. Now, any of these can make web connections over the internet, so you can use a web browser to remotely control a computer on the LAN. The difference with VNC and TeamViewer is they will use RSA for the connection, and I believe TeamViewer uses a 2048-bit encryption key for that connection. And then for the session data, they both use AES, and I believe they both use 256-bit for that. So that is considered uncrackable technology and definitely better encryption. Now, another thing is TeamViewer can have multiple layers of authentication. So we're talking multi-factor authentication here. Not only you type in a password, but you can add on a PIN or a passcode or that type of thing. So increased encryption and additional authentication can make these better alternatives than a program such as RDS. However, that's not always the case. You got to look at the scenario. Do you have a larger network? RDS running on a server might be better. You might also add some FIPS compliant hardware or software modules. And then you have a very powerful remote connection. So, every scenario is different, but for the small clients, generally I'll recommend VNC and TeamViewer or other tools similar to those. So there's a little RDS alternatives for you.